I used to think the worst thing about my marriage was Vanessa's habit of leaving coffee rings on my mahogany desk. Turns out that was like complaining about a hangnail while someone's sawing off your leg with a rusty blade. My name is Nathan Rowan, and 3 months ago I was living what most people would call the American dream. 38 years old, CEO of a tech company I built from scratch in my garage, married to a woman who could stop traffic just by breathing. We lived in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and threw parties that made the society pages. The funny thing about dreams is how quickly they can turn into nightmares. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. I was in my home office debugging code for our latest software release when I heard Vanessa talking on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice had that honey-sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "Of course, darling," she was saying. "Miami sounds absolutely divine. When do we leave?" I paused my typing. We? I hadn't heard anything about Miami. "Oh, Nathan won't mind," she continued with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "He's always buried in his computers anyway. He probably won't even notice I'm gone." She wasn't wrong about that last part, and that should have been my first warning sign. Vanessa swept into my office 20 minutes later, looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that effortless way that probably took an hour to perfect, and she wore a cream-colored dress that cost more than my first car. "Darling," she said, not quite meeting my eyes, "Tanya invited me to join her in Miami for a few days, some sort of wellness retreat. You don't mind, do you?" Tanya Morrison was Vanessa's best friend, a trust fund baby who collected husbands like some people collect stamps. She was on number 4 last I'd heard. "When?" I asked, still staring at my screen. "This weekend, just for a week. A week, for a wellness retreat. In Miami." "Sure," I said. "Have fun." She kissed the top of my head, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, something French and expensive that she'd started wearing recently. "You're the best, Nathan. I'll miss you terribly." The lie came so easily that I almost believed it myself. After she left, I sat there for a long time, staring at the code on my screen without really seeing it. When had we become strangers living in the same house? When had her kisses started feeling like obligations? I shook my head and got back to work. I had a company to run, and self-pity never debugged anyone's code. Vanessa left for Miami on Friday morning, wheeling a suitcase that looked big enough to hide a body. She was practically glowing with excitement, chattering about spa treatments and yoga classes. I drove her to the airport because that's what good husbands do, right? "I'll call you tonight," she promised, standing on her tiptoes to kiss my cheek. She didn't call that night, or the next. By Sunday, I was starting to feel like a ghost haunting my own home. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic 20 floors below. I'd always been comfortable with solitude, but this felt different. This felt like abandonment. That's when I decided to surprise her. Monday morning, I called Premier Cleaning Services. I'd been meaning to hire a regular cleaning service for months, but Vanessa had always insisted she preferred to handle it herself. "I like things done a certain way," she'd say, which was code for, "I don't trust strangers in our home." But Vanessa wasn't here, and I thought it might be nice for her to come home to a spotless house. A peace offering, maybe. A way to say I'm sorry for being distant without actually having to say the words. The woman who answered the phone had a slight accent. Spanish, maybe. "Premier Cleaning, this is Maria. How can I help you?" "I'd like to schedule a deep clean of my apartment," I said. "This week, if possible." "Of course, sir. We have an opening Wednesday morning. Will you be home?" "I'll be at work, but I can leave a key with the doorman." "Perfect. We'll send our best team. Alma Ruiz will be your lead cleaner. She's been with us for 15 years. Very thorough, very trustworthy." Wednesday morning, I left detailed instructions with the doorman and headed to the office. My company, Nexus Solutions, occupied 2 floors of a glass tower in the Loop. We specialized in cybersecurity software, which is ironic considering how spectacularly I'd failed to secure my own life. I was in the middle of a budget meeting when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mr. Rowan?" The voice was shaky, frightened. "This is Alma Ruiz from the cleaning service. Sir, you need to come home. Now?" My blood went cold. "What's wrong? Is there a fire? Did someone break in?" "No, sir, nothing like that, but," her voice dropped to a whisper, "I found something. Something you need to see. I'm scared, Mr. Rowan. I think you might be in danger." The line went dead. I made some excuse about a family emergency and raced home, my mind spinning with possibilities. A gas leak? A break-in? Had Vanessa come home early and surprised the cleaning crew? But when I pulled up to my building, there was no sign of emergency vehicles, no crowds of evacuated residents, just Alma Ruiz, a small woman in her 50s, sitting on the steps leading to the main entrance. She was clutching a tissue and looked like she'd been crying. Mrs. Ruiz? I approached her carefully, the way you might approach a wounded animal. Are you all right? She looked up at me with dark eyes that had seen too much. Mr. Rowan, I've been cleaning houses for 20 years. I've seen drugs. I've seen affairs. I've seen families torn apart by secrets. But I've never seen anything like this. She stood up, her hands shaking. It's in your bedroom closet, the very back, behind your wife's winter coats. There's a box. My mouth went dry. What kind of box? The kind that ruins lives, she whispered. The kind that gets people killed. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt like it took hours. Alma stood beside me, wringing her hands and muttering what sounded like prayers in Spanish. I wanted to ask her more questions, but something in her expression warned me to wait. My apartment door was propped open, cleaning supplies scattered in the hallway like someone had dropped everything and run. The smell of lemon polish hung in the air, a cheerful scent that felt obscene given the circumstances. I was doing the bedroom, Alma explained as we walked through the living room. Your wife, she has so many clothes. Beautiful clothes. I was organizing them by season, like you asked. We stopped at the master bedroom doorway. Our king-sized bed was perfectly made, the cream-colored comforter smooth as glass. Vanessa's vanity table gleamed, her expensive perfumes and cosmetics arranged like soldiers in formation. The box was pushed way back, Alma continued, leading me to the walk-in closet. Behind the winter coats, under some old sweaters. At first I thought maybe it was Christmas presents or something personal. I almost didn't look. She pointed to the back corner of the closet, where Vanessa's designer coats hung like colorful ghosts. But it was heavy when I moved it, and when I opened it, the box sat on our bed now, innocent-looking. It was about the size of a shoebox made of plain cardboard, the kind you might use to store old photographs or important documents. There was nothing threatening about it, nothing that screamed danger. What's inside? I asked, though part of me already knew I didn't want to know. See for yourself, Alma whispered. But be careful, Mr. Rowan. Be very careful. I approached the box like it might explode. My hands were steady as I lifted the lid, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. The first thing I saw was photographs, dozens of them, all of me leaving the apartment building, me walking into my office, me at the grocery store, at the gym, at the coffee shop where I grabbed lunch most days. They were surveillance photos, taken with a telephoto lens from a distance. Someone had been watching me, studying me, learning my routines. Beneath the photos were printed emails. I recognized the letterhead of our insurance company, but these weren't copies of our regular homeowner's policy. These were correspondence about a life insurance policy I'd never seen before. A policy worth $5 million, with Vanessa listed as the sole beneficiary. My signature was at the bottom of the application, but I'd never signed it. Someone had forged it, and they'd done a damn good job. There was more. Bank statements showing large cash withdrawals from our joint account, withdrawals I hadn't made. A second passport with Vanessa's photo, but a different name, Victoria Marsh. Plane tickets to countries that didn't have extradition treaties with the United States. At the bottom of the box, wrapped in a silk scarf I recognized as one of Vanessa's favorites, was a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. No label, no identification. Just liquid that looked innocent as water, but felt deadly as a loaded gun. Jesus, I breathed. There's more, Alma said softly. She handed me a piece of paper that had been folded in half. This was taped to the inside of the lid. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. It was handwritten in Vanessa's elegant script. 2 weeks should be enough time. The policy won't be contestable after the waiting period. Make it look accidental. Heart attack would be best given his stress levels and family history. V will handle the rest. Clean up everything and disappear. V. The note was dated 5 days ago, 5 days into her Miami trip. I sank onto the bed, the note fluttering from my numb fingers. Everything made sense now. The distance between us, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden interest in my health and stress levels, the way she'd been pushing me to eat better, exercise more, take those vitamin supplements she'd started buying. Mr. Rowan? Alma's voice seemed to come from very far away. Should I call the police? I looked up at her, This woman who'd probably saved my life by being thorough in her work. Yes, I said. Call the police. While Alma made the call, I sat there staring at the evidence of my wife's betrayal, 5 years of marriage, and it had all been a lie. Or maybe not all of it. Maybe she'd loved me once before I became successful enough to be worth more dead than alive. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Detective Pete Mallory was a man in his late 40s with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too much of humanity's dark side. He examined the contents of the box with professional detachment, while his partner, a younger woman named Detective Santos, took my statement. When did you first suspect something was wrong? Santos asked. I didn't, I admitted. I thought she was just distant. We've been having some problems, but I never imagined. I gestured helplessly at the box. Have you been in contact with your wife since she left for Miami? She was supposed to call, but she hasn't. I figured she was just busy with her friend. Mallory looked up from the photographs. Mr. Rowan, have you tried calling her? I pulled out my phone and dialed Vanessa's number. It went straight to voicemail. Her voice, bright and cheerful. Hi, you've reached Vanessa. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you soon. Such a beautiful lie. We'll need to take all of this as evidence, Mallory said, carefully placing everything back in the box. We'll also need you to come to the station to give a full statement. Of course. But what about Vanessa? Are you going to arrest her? The detectives exchanged a look. We need to locate her first, Santos said. And we need to verify that these documents are authentic. This is a complex case, Mr. Rowan. These things take time. Time. The one thing I might not have had if Alma hadn't found that box. After the police left, Alma and I stood in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of her interrupted cleaning job. She looked exhausted, aged by what she'd discovered. Mrs. Ruiz, I said, I can't thank you enough. You saved my life. She shook her head. I just did my job. But Mr. Rowan, you need to be very careful now. If your wife finds out that box is gone. She didn't need to finish the sentence. If Vanessa found out her plan had been discovered, she might decide to accelerate her timeline or find another way to get what she wanted. I'll be careful, I promised. After Alma left, I double-locked the door and engaged the security system. Then I sat in my living room, staring out at Lake Michigan, and tried to process what my life had become. My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number again, but this time it was Detective Mallory. Mr. Rowan, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Okay. Did you know that your wife has been married before? The question hit me like a physical blow. What? No, that's impossible. She told me I was her first husband. There was a long pause. Mr. Rowan, according to our preliminary investigation, Vanessa Marsh, that's her real name, by the way, not Vanessa Clark like she told you, has been married 3 times before. All 3 of her previous husbands died within 2 years of their weddings. The room started to spin. How did they die? That's what we're trying to find out. But Mr. Rowan? You might want to consider staying somewhere else tonight. Somewhere she doesn't know about. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every sound in the apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of wind against the windows, the distant rumble of traffic, sounded like footsteps, like someone coming to finish what they'd started. Instead of sleeping, I did what I do best. I dug into the digital world. Vanessa had always been careful about her computer usage around me, which should have been another red flag. She kept her laptop password protected and never left it unattended. But she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'm a cybersecurity expert, and I designed the network infrastructure for our entire apartment building. Every device connected to our home Wi-Fi left traces, digital breadcrumbs that led back to a central server I could access remotely. It took me 3 hours to crack her encryption, and what I found made my blood run cold. The email account I discovered wasn't the one she used for everyday correspondence. This was a secret account registered under the name Victoria Marsh, filled with months of communications that painted a picture of betrayal so complete, it took my breath away. The first email that caught my attention was from 6 months ago, from vmarsh2024@securemail.com, to emalden@maldentech.net. Subject, our discussion, Eric. I've been thinking about what you said at the conference. You're right. Nathan is vulnerable right now. The stress of the IPO, his father's heart condition, all of it. The timing couldn't be better. We need to be smart about this. Patient. but I think your plan could work. Call me tonight after 10. N will be asleep. V. Eric Malden. My chest tightened as I read the name. I knew Eric. He was the CEO of Malden Tech, my biggest competitor in the cybersecurity space. We'd been rivals for years, ever since he'd tried to poach my best developers with promises of stock options and company cars. But I'd never suspected he knew Vanessa. I'd certainly never suspected they were conspiring against me. I scrolled through months of emails, each one more damning than the last. They detailed a relationship that had apparently started at a tech conference in Las Vegas, a conference Vanessa had insisted on attending with me, claiming she wanted to understand my world better. From emalden at maldentech.net to vmarsh2024 at securemail.com. Subject: Last night, V, I can't stop thinking about you. About us. Nathan doesn't deserve you. He never has. You're wasted on someone who cares more about code than the woman in his bed. When this is over, we'll have everything. My company will absorb his, and with the insurance money, we'll never have to worry about anything again. I love you. I had to stop reading for a moment, fighting the urge to put my fist through the computer screen. The casual way they discussed my death, like they were planning a vacation or deciding what to have for dinner, was more chilling than any threat could have been. But it got worse. Much worse. The emails revealed that this wasn't their first collaboration. Eric had been married before, to a woman named Patricia, who died in a car accident 2 years ago. The insurance payout had been substantial, and according to the emails, Vanessa had helped orchestrate that accident too. From vmarsh2024 at securemail.com to emalden at maldentech.net. Subject: Patricia's anniversary. E. I know today is hard for you, but remember, what we did was necessary. Patricia would have taken half your company in the divorce. Now you have everything and we have each other. Nathan will be easier. He trusts me completely. The fool actually thinks I love him. 1 more month and it'll all be over. V. There were photos attached to some of the emails. Photos of Eric and Vanessa together in hotel rooms, their bodies intertwined, their faces flushed with passion and conspiracy. The woman in those photos bore no resemblance to the cold, calculating wife I'd been living with. This woman was alive, electric, consumed with desire. She'd never looked at me like that, not once in 5 years of marriage. The most recent email was dated just 3 days ago. From emalden at maldentech.net to vmarsh2024 at securemail.com. Subject: Timeline V. The policy is active. Tanya confirms she'll provide your alibi for the entire week. The substance you requested is in the usual place. Be careful with it. A few drops in his morning coffee should be enough. I'll be in Chicago tomorrow for the Nexus board meeting. Ironic that I'll be sitting across from him while you're ending his life. After this, no more killing. We'll have enough money to disappear forever. I love you, Victoria. Soon we'll be free. E. I sat back in my chair, my hands shaking with rage. While I'd been worrying about budget projections and software releases, my wife and my biggest business rival had been planning my murder. They'd been laughing about it, getting off on it, treating my life like it was nothing more than an obstacle to their happiness. But there was something else in that last email that caught my attention. After this, no more killing. How many people had they killed together? How many lives had they destroyed in their quest for money and power? I kept digging, following digital trails that led deeper into their conspiracy. What I found was a network of accomplices that stretched across multiple states. Tanya Morrison wasn't just providing an alibi. She was an active participant, helping to identify wealthy targets and create opportunities for accidents. There was Brad Hoffman, an insurance investigator who'd helped expedite claims and cover up suspicious circumstances. There was Dr. Sarah Chen, a physician who'd falsified medical records to support claims of pre-existing conditions. There was even a funeral director named Michael Torres who'd helped dispose of evidence during cremations. It was a murder-for-profit ring, and I was their next target. My phone buzzed with a text message from Vanessa. Missing you terribly, darling. Miami is beautiful, but not the same without you. Home tomorrow night. Can't wait to see you. Love, V. The casual lie, sent while she was probably in bed with Eric, made my stomach turn. But it also gave me an idea. I could play this game too. I texted back, miss you too. Can't wait to hold you again. Safe travels. Love, N. Then I started planning my revenge. The first step was to make them think their plan was still viable. I couldn't let them know I'd discovered their conspiracy. Not yet. I needed time to gather more evidence, time to turn their own network against them. But I also needed to protect myself. That vial of poison was still out there somewhere, and Vanessa would be home in less than 24 hours. I called Detective Mallory. "Mr. Rowan, it's pretty late." "I know, but I found something. Emails between my wife and Eric Malden. They've been planning this for months." There was a long pause. "Eric Malden, the tech CEO? You know him?" "His wife died in a car accident 2 years ago. Single car crash, no witnesses. The insurance company paid out without question." "It wasn't an accident," I said. "They killed her too." "Can you forward me those emails?" "Already done." "Detective, there's something else. Vanessa is coming home tomorrow night. If she still thinks her plan is secret, we'll have surveillance on your building," Mallory promised. "But, Mr. Rowan, you need to be very careful. If these people are as dangerous as you think, they won't hesitate to kill you if they feel cornered." After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was probably lying next to Eric, planning my funeral while they celebrated their future together. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated the man they were trying to kill. I'd built a tech company from nothing. I'd survived hostile takeovers, economic downturns, and cutthroat competition. I'd learned to fight dirty when I had to be ruthless when the situation called for it. Vanessa and Eric thought I was just another mark, another victim to be disposed of for profit. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Maybe it was the knowledge that my marriage was over, or maybe it was the simple relief of finally understanding what I was up against. Either way, I felt like myself again for the first time in years. My first stop was the office. I needed to act normal, to maintain the facade that I was still the unsuspecting husband, but I also needed to start laying the groundwork for what came next. "Morning, boss." Tim Martinez, my CTO, greeted me as I walked into the office. Tim had been with me since the early days, when we were working 18-hour shifts and living on pizza and energy drinks. He was one of the few people I trusted completely. "Tim, I need you to do something for me," I said, closing my office door behind us, "and I need you to keep it quiet." His expression grew serious. "What's going on?" I gave him the abbreviated version. Vanessa was trying to kill me for insurance money. She was working with Eric Malden, and I needed to protect both myself and the company. Tim's face went through several expressions: shock, anger, and finally, cold determination. "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to quietly liquidate some of my stock options. Make it look like we're having cash flow problems. Spread some rumors about potential layoffs, maybe hint that we're struggling to make payroll. You want people to think the company is failing? I want Eric and Vanessa to think I'm failing. If they believe I'm broke, they might get desperate and make mistakes." Tim nodded slowly. "How broke are we talking?" "Broke enough that a $5 million life insurance policy would seem like a godsend to a grieving widow." "Jesus, Nathan. Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure." While Tim worked on tanking my apparent net worth, I had Lisa Chen, my administrative assistant, start digging into Eric's business dealings. Lisa had a talent for gossip, and an even better talent for finding information people didn't want found. "I need everything you can find on Eric Malden," I told her. "Financial records, business relationships, personal life. Anything that might be useful?" Lisa's eyes lit up. She loved a challenge, especially one that involved bringing down someone she considered an enemy of the company. "Should I ask why?" "Better if you don't know the details yet. Just trust me." By noon, Tim had successfully started rumors about Nexus Solutions' financial troubles. Our stock price dropped 3%, and industry blogs were already speculating about potential layoffs. My phone started ringing with calls from concerned investors and board members. I let most of them go to voicemail. The ones I did answer, I played up the struggling CEO angle, stressed, overwhelmed, maybe not thinking clearly. It wasn't hard to fake. I'd been living that reality for months without knowing it. Lisa came into my office around 2 o'clock with a thick folder and a satisfied smile. "Eric Malden is not as clean as he pretends to be," she announced, dropping the folder on my desk. 3 SEC violations in the past 5 years, all settled quietly. 2 sexual harassment lawsuits from former employees, also settled out of court. And here's the interesting part. His company is leveraged to the hilt. He's been borrowing against future earnings to fund expansion. How leveraged? If he lost one major contract, he'd be bankrupt within 6 months. I smiled for the first time in days. "Lisa, you're brilliant." "I know, but Nathan, there's something else. Something weird." She pulled out a photograph from the folder. A surveillance shot taken outside a restaurant downtown. It showed Eric having lunch with a man I didn't recognize. But Lisa had helpfully attached a note identifying him as Vincent Carrera, a known associate of organized crime figures in Chicago. This was taken last week, Lisa said. What's a tech CEO doing having lunch with a mob lawyer? The pieces started clicking together in my mind. Eric wasn't just a murderer, he was connected to a larger criminal network. That explained how he and Vanessa had been able to pull off multiple accidents without getting caught. But it also meant they were more dangerous than I'd initially thought. My phone buzzed with another text from Vanessa. Flight delayed. Won't be home until late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Perfect. That gave me more time to prepare. I spent the rest of the afternoon setting up surveillance in my apartment. Hidden cameras in the bedroom, kitchen, and living room. Audio recording devices in places Vanessa would never think to look. If she was going to try to poison me, I wanted every second of it documented. I also made a trip to my doctor explaining that I was concerned about potential poisoning and needed blood work done to establish a baseline. Dr. Williams thought I was being paranoid, but he agreed to run comprehensive toxicology panels and keep the results confidential. By evening, I was as ready as I could be. The apartment was wired for sound and video. I had Detective Mallory on speed dial, and I'd arranged for Tim to check on me every hour via text message. Vanessa arrived home at 11:30, looking tanned and relaxed from her week in Miami. She was practically glowing, and I realized it wasn't from the sun, it was from anticipation. She thought she was coming home to execute the final phase of her plan. "Darling!" she exclaimed, dropping her suitcase and throwing her arms around me. "I missed you so much!" The embrace felt like being hugged by a snake. "How was the retreat?" I asked, playing my role as the loving, unsuspecting husband. "Wonderful, but exhausting. All that yoga and meditation." She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "I'm starving. Did you eat dinner?" "I waited for you." "You're so sweet. Let me just freshen up and then I'll make us something." She disappeared into the bedroom, and I watched on my hidden camera feed as she went straight to the closet. I saw her face change when she realized the box was gone, saw the moment of panic before she composed herself. When she came back to the kitchen, her smile was strained. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Of course, just tired from traveling." She moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, preparing a late dinner of pasta and salad. "How was your week? You look stressed." "Work's been challenging. We're having some financial difficulties." Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "What kind of difficulties?" I launched into a carefully crafted story about lost contracts, investor concerns, and potential bankruptcy. With each detail, I watched Vanessa's expression grow more animated, more excited. She was practically salivating at the thought of my financial ruin. "Oh, Nathan," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm so sorry. But you know we'll get through this together, right? For better or worse, in sickness and in health." The wedding vow sounded obscene coming from her lips. After dinner, she insisted on making me a cup of my favorite tea chamomile with honey, she said, to help me sleep better. I watched her in the kitchen, saw her palm something small and clear, saw her add it to my cup when she thought I wasn't looking. "Here you go, darling," she said, handing me the poisoned tea with a smile. "This will help you relax." I took the cup, inhaled the sweet scent of chamomile and death, and smiled back at her. "Thank you," I said. "You always know exactly what I need." I raised the cup to my lips, saw her lean forward slightly in anticipation, and then I did something she wasn't expecting. I switched our cups. "Actually," I said, "I think I'd prefer coffee. Would you mind drinking this instead? I'd hate for it to go to waste." For just a moment, her mask slipped. I saw the real Vanessa underneath, cold, calculating, and absolutely furious that her plan had been disrupted, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, darling. Whatever you prefer." She took a small sip of the tea, just enough to be polite, then set it aside. "Actually, I'm not that thirsty either. Maybe we should just go to bed." "Good idea. I'm pretty tired." We went through the motions of getting ready for bed, brushing our teeth side by side like the loving couple we'd once pretended to be. But I could feel the tension radiating from her, could see her mind working as she tried to figure out her next move. In bed, she curled up against me, her head on my chest, her breathing gradually slowing as she fell asleep. But I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her heartbeat against my ribs. This woman had planned to murder me, had murdered others before me, had spent months lying next to me in this same bed, planning my death. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. I woke up the next morning to the sound of Vanessa talking quietly on the phone in the bathroom. The door was closed, but the hidden microphones I'd installed picked up every word. "It didn't work," she was saying, her voice tight with frustration. "He switched the cups at the last second. I don't know if he suspects something or if it was just dumb luck." Eric's voice came through clearly on speaker. "We can't take any more chances, V. If he's getting suspicious, we need to accelerate the timeline. What are you suggesting?" "The board meeting is this afternoon. I'll be in the same building as him. Maybe it's time for a more direct approach." "Eric, we agreed." "I know what we agreed, but circumstances have changed. If the police start looking into this..." "They won't. There's no evidence. If only she knew." "There's always evidence, Victoria. The question is whether anyone's looking for it." I heard the sound of water running, then Vanessa's voice again. "Give me one more chance. Tonight, I'll find another way." "Fine, but if this doesn't work, we do it my way." The call ended, and I quickly closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep as Vanessa emerged from the bathroom. "Good morning, darling," she said, her voice sickeningly sweet as she kissed my forehead. "Sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied. "That tea really helped." Her smile was radiant. "I'm so glad." After she left for her yoga class, or whatever she was really doing, I called Detective Mallory. "They're getting desperate," I told him. "Eric's talking about a more direct approach." "We've got surveillance on both of them," Mallory assured me. "But Nathan, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go through with this? We have enough evidence to arrest them now. Not enough to convict them for the other murders. I want them all, Detective. Everyone who's been part of this. It's dangerous. So is letting them walk away to kill someone else." That afternoon, I sat in the Nexus Solutions boardroom, listening to quarterly reports and budget projections, while Eric Malden sat across from me. He looked confident, relaxed, like a man who was about to solve all his problems. He had no idea that I knew exactly what those problems were. "Nathan," he said during a break, approaching me with a concerned expression, "I heard about your financial difficulties. If there's anything Malden Tech can do to help..." The offer was so perfectly calculated, so transparently predatory, that I almost laughed out loud. "That's very generous, Eric," I said, "but I think we'll weather the storm." Of course. But if you ever want to discuss a merger or even a simple acquisition..." He placed a hand on my shoulder, and it took every ounce of self-control I had not to break his fingers. "I'd hate to see a company like yours go under because of temporary cash flow problems. I'll keep that in mind." He squeezed my shoulder, and I saw something dark flicker in his eyes. "You do that, Nathan. Time has a way of running out when you least expect it." After the meeting, I followed Eric to the parking garage. He was on his phone again, talking to someone in hushed tones. "Tonight," he was saying. "One way or another, this ends tonight." I stayed in the shadows, recording everything on my phone until he drove away in his black Mercedes. Then I called Mallory again. "They're making their move tonight," I said. "Whatever happens, I need you to let it play out until you have everything on tape." "Nathan, promise me, Detective. These people have killed at least 4 people that we know of. I want them buried so deep they never see daylight again." There was a long pause. "All right. But the moment we think you're in real danger, we're moving in." That evening, Vanessa was unusually attentive. She cooked my favorite dinner, opened a bottle of expensive wine, and kept touching me, my hand, my arm, my shoulder. To anyone watching, we looked like a couple rekindling their romance, but I could see the calculation in her eyes, could feel the tension in her touch. She was working up to something. "Nathan," she said over dessert, "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about the company's financial problems. What about them? Maybe this is a sign. Maybe it's time for us to step back, reassess our priorities." She reached across the table and took my hand. "We could sell the company, pay off the debts, and start over somewhere new, just the 2 of us." "Sell to whom?" "Well, Eric made you an offer, didn't he?" There it was, the setup, delivered with perfect innocence. "He mentioned something about an acquisition, yes? Maybe you should consider it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?" "Death," I thought. "The worst that could happen is that you and your lover would kill me and split the insurance money." "I suppose it's worth exploring," I said. Her smile was brilliant. "I'm so glad you're being open-minded about this. I think it could be exactly what we need." "What you need, maybe." After dinner, she suggested we take a walk along the lakefront. It was a beautiful evening, she said, and the fresh air might help me think more clearly about the future. I agreed, knowing that this was probably when they planned to make their move. A mugging gone wrong, maybe, or a tragic accident near the water. But as we walked through Grant Park, I noticed the unmarked police cars positioned at strategic points along our route. Mallory was keeping his word. "It's so peaceful here," Vanessa said, guiding me toward a more secluded area near the lake. "Sometimes I think we should just disappear, Leave all the stress and pressure behind." Where would we go? Somewhere warm. Somewhere we could start fresh. Her hand tightened on my arm. Somewhere no one would ever find us. We reached a quiet stretch of the lakefront path, away from the streetlights and the evening joggers. Vanessa stopped walking and turned to face me. "Nathan, there's something I need to tell you." "What's that?" "I love you, more than you'll ever know. And everything I've done, everything I'm about to do, it's because I love you." Before I could respond, she pulled something from her purse, a small device that looked like an asthma inhaler. "This will only hurt for a moment," she whispered, raising it toward my face. I grabbed her wrist, stopping her just inches from my nose. "What is that, Vanessa?" It's nothing. Is it the same thing you used on Patricia Malden? The same thing you were going to put in my tea?" Her face went white. "Nathan, I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Just like you know about the forged insurance policy and the surveillance photos and the emails between you and Eric planning my murder." She tried to pull away, but I held her wrist tight. With my free hand, I pulled out my phone and showed her the recording app that had been running all evening. "Smile, darling, you're going to be famous." That's when she screamed. Not for help. She screamed in rage, in frustration, in the fury of a predator who'd been outmaneuvered by her prey. She clawed at my face with her free hand, trying to break my grip on the device. "You bastard!" she snarled, her beautiful mask finally slipping completely. "You have no idea what you've done. Eric will kill you for this." "Eric's going to have problems of his own," I said, as police officers emerged from the shadows around us. Detective Mallory approached with his gun drawn, his partner flanking him from the other side. "Vanessa Marsh, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and the attempted murder of Nathan Rowan." As they cuffed her, she looked at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Nathan. You'll never be safe. Never." But I was already thinking about phase 2 of my revenge. The legal system would handle the murder charges. But there were other forms of justice, other ways to make sure that Eric Malden and his network of accomplices paid for what they'd done. And I was just getting started. The next morning, Eric Malden's world began to collapse. I'd spent the entire night after Vanessa's arrest, working with Detective Mallory and the FBI Cybercrimes Unit, turning over every piece of digital evidence I'd collected. But I'd also made copies of everything, because I had plans that went beyond simple criminal prosecution. At exactly 9 a.m., every major tech blog, business journal, and news outlet in Chicago received an anonymous email package containing Eric's correspondence with Vanessa, documentation of his connection to organized crime figures, and evidence linking him to Patricia Malden's death. By 9:30, Malden Tech's stock price had dropped 40%. By 10 a.m., the SEC had announced an emergency investigation into the company's financial practices. By noon, 3 of Eric's major clients had canceled their contracts. I watched it all unfold from my office, monitoring news feeds and social media while fielding calls from reporters who wanted my comment on the shocking revelations about my wife's alleged criminal activities. I played the role of the grieving, betrayed husband perfectly, shocked by the accusations, devastated by my wife's betrayal, grateful to law enforcement for protecting me from what could have been a tragic fate. "Mr. Rowan," asked a reporter from the Chicago Tribune, "did you have any suspicion that your wife was involved in criminal activities?" "None whatsoever," I said, injecting just the right amount of pain into my voice. "Vanessa is the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. To learn that she was planning to kill me for insurance money, that she may have killed others, it's beyond comprehension." "What about Eric Malden? Were you aware of his relationship with your wife?" "I knew him as a business competitor, nothing more. The idea that he was involved in this conspiracy, that he may have murdered his own wife." I paused as if overcome with emotion. "I just hope justice is served for all the victims." The interview aired that evening on the local news, and by the next morning, Eric's reputation was in ruins. But I wasn't done. Tim had been busy following my instructions, quietly reaching out to Malden Tech's employees and offering them positions at Nexus Solutions. With their company imploding, many of Eric's best developers and engineers were eager to jump ship. "We've got 12 resumes already," Tim reported, including Sarah Kim, their lead security architect. She says she's been wanting to leave for months but couldn't afford to quit. What changed her mind? The news about Eric's connection to organized crime. Apparently, there have been some unusual visitors to the Malden Tech offices recently. People who made the staff uncomfortable. I wasn't surprised. Eric's criminal connections were probably putting pressure on him to pay his debts, which explained why he'd been so eager to accelerate the timeline for my murder. Lisa knocked on my office door, practically vibrating with excitement. "Nathan, you need to see this," she said, pulling up a video on her tablet. Someone leaked security footage from Malden Tech's parking garage. The video showed Eric meeting with Vincent Carrera, the mob lawyer Lisa had identified earlier. But this wasn't a casual lunch meeting. This was Eric handing over a briefcase full of cash while Carrera's associates stood watch. "When was this taken?" I asked. 3 days ago, the same day Vanessa tried to poison you." The pieces were falling into place. Eric had been paying protection money to organized crime figures, probably to keep them from asking too many questions about his sudden wealth after Patricia's death. But with his company failing and his murder scheme exposed, he couldn't make his payments, which meant he was about to have much bigger problems than criminal prosecution. My phone rang. Detective Mallory. "Nathan, we've got Eric in custody," he said. "Picked him up this morning trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands. Had $2 million in cash and a fake passport." "What about the others? Tanya, the insurance investigator, the doctor?" "Tanya's cooperating in exchange for immunity. She's giving us everything: names, dates, bank account numbers. Apparently, this network has been operating for over 5 years. We're looking at least a dozen suspicious deaths. A dozen. 12 families destroyed so that Eric and Vanessa could live in luxury." "There's something else," Mallory continued. "Tanya says Eric's been getting death threats from some very dangerous people. Money he owes for services rendered. The kind of people who don't accept bankruptcy as an excuse." Services rendered? Muscle. Intimidation. Help with making accidents look convincing. Eric got in bed with the wrong crowd, and now they want their money. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Vincent Carrera himself, accompanied by 2 men who looked like they bench-pressed motorcycles for fun. "Mr. Rowan," Carrera said, settling into the chair across from my desk like he owned the place. "I believe we have a mutual problem." "I don't think we have anything mutual, Mr. Carrera." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Eric Malden owes my clients a substantial amount of money. Money he was supposed to pay using proceeds from your life insurance policy. That's not my problem. Isn't it? See, Eric's in jail now, and his company's worthless, which means my clients are out $2 million, plus interest." He leaned forward. "They're looking for someone to make them whole." I felt a chill run down my spine, but I kept my expression neutral. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Carrera?" "I'm explaining a situation. Eric made promises he can't keep, but you're a successful businessman. You have assets. You could make this problem go away. Or my clients might decide that Eric's problems became your problems the moment you interfered with their business arrangement." Before I could respond, my office door opened and Detective Mallory walked in, followed by 2 FBI agents. "Gentlemen," Mallory said pleasantly, "I hope we're not interrupting anything important." Carrera's smile became genuinely amused. "Detective Mallory, how nice to see you again. Vincent Carrera, you're under arrest for extortion, conspiracy, and racketeering." The FBI agents moved to flank him. "You have the right to remain silent." As they led Carrera and his associates away, Mallory turned to me. "We've been monitoring your office since yesterday," he explained. "Figured Eric's friends might try to make you their new business partner. Thanks for the heads up. Don't thank me yet. These people have long memories and longer reach. You might want to consider hiring some security for a while." But as it turned out, I didn't need security. The next morning, Vincent Carrera and his associates were found dead in their jail cells, victims of what the warden described as an apparent suicide pact. I didn't believe that for a second, and neither did anyone else. Someone higher up the criminal food chain had decided that Carrera and his crew knew too much, had become too much of a liability, which meant Eric's debt had died with them. By the end of the week, Malden Tech had filed for bankruptcy. Eric was facing charges for murder, conspiracy, racketeering, and about a dozen other felonies that would keep him in prison for the rest of his life. Vanessa was in solitary confinement after attempting to hang herself with a bedsheet, though I suspected it was more of a cry for attention than a genuine suicide attempt. She'd always been too narcissistic to actually kill herself. Tanya Morrison had been ostracized by Chicago society, her trust fund frozen pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. The last I heard, she was working as a waitress in Milwaukee under an assumed name. Dr. Sarah Chen had lost her medical license and was facing her own criminal charges. Brad Hoffman, the insurance investigator, had been fired and blacklisted from the industry. Everyone who'd been part of Eric and Vanessa's murder network was either dead, in jail, or ruined. But I still wasn't satisfied, because there was one more thing I needed to do. 3 months after Vanessa's arrest, I received a call that changed everything. "Mr. Rowan, this is Janet Walsh from the Cook County Jail. I'm calling about your wife." My blood went cold. "What about her?" "She's escaped." The words hit me like a physical blow. "How is that possible?" "She was being transported to a medical appointment when the prison van was involved in what appeared to be a traffic accident. During the confusion, she managed to slip away from her restraints and disappear into the crowd." "When?" "About 6 hours ago. We've got every available officer looking for her, but—" Walsh's voice trailed off. "But what?" "Mr. Rowan, your wife made some threats before she escaped, threats specifically directed at you. We think you should consider this a credible danger to your safety." I hung up the phone and immediately called Detective Mallory, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried the FBI agents who'd been handling the case, but got the same result. It was a Friday evening, and I was alone in my office building. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago, and the security guard was probably making his rounds on the lower floors. I was thinking about calling for police protection when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. I could hear the hum of the backup generators, but something felt wrong. My office door was locked, but that wouldn't stop someone who was determined to get in. I moved away from my desk, staying low, trying to think of the best way to get out of the building. That's when I heard her voice echoing through the building's intercom system. "Hello, Nathan." Vanessa. She'd somehow gotten access to the building's PA system. "I told you this wasn't over," her voice continued, distorted by static, but unmistakably hers. "Did you really think you could destroy my life and just walk away?" I pulled out my phone to call 911, but there was no signal. She'd probably installed a cell phone jammer. "I've spent the last 3 months in that cage, thinking about what I was going to do to you," she said. "Thinking about how I was going to make you pay for ruining everything." I moved toward the door, testing the handle. Still locked, but I had a keycard that would get me into the stairwell. "Eric's dead, you know," Vanessa's voice followed me. "Killed himself in his cell rather than face life in prison. So noble. So weak." I slipped out of my office and into the hallway, moving toward the emergency exit. The red lighting made everything look like a scene from a horror movie. "But I'm not weak, Nathan. I'm not going to take the easy way out. I'm going to look you in the eye when I kill you." The stairwell door was locked from the outside. She'd thought of everything. "The elevators are disabled," she continued, as if reading my mind. "The fire exits are sealed. The security guard is indisposed. It's just you and me now, darling. The way it should have been from the beginning." I moved toward the center of the building, where a glass-walled conference room gave me a view of the entire floor. If she was up here with me, I wanted to see her coming. "You know what the funny thing is?" Her voice echoed around me. "I actually did love you once. In the beginning, when you were just another mark, I found myself caring about you. It complicated things. I saw movement near the elevator bank, a shadow that didn't belong. But then you became successful, rich, and I realized you were worth more to me dead than alive. It wasn't personal, Nathan. It was just business." She stepped into the light, and I saw that she was holding a gun. Not the poison or the exotic devices she'd preferred before, just a simple, efficient pistol. "But now it's personal," she said, her eyes finding mine across the darkened office space. "Now it's about revenge." I raised my hands, trying to look defeated. "Vanessa, please. We can work this out." She laughed, the sound echoing off the glass walls. "Work it out. Nathan, you destroyed everything. My life, my future, my freedom. Eric's dead because of you. Tanya's ruined because of you. Everyone I cared about is gone because of you. You killed people, Vanessa. Innocent people. Innocent? She moved closer, keeping the gun trained on me. Patricia Malden was going to take half of Eric's company in their divorce. She was going to destroy everything he'd built. And your precious Patricia wasn't so innocent. She was having an affair with her personal trainer. That didn't give you the right to kill her. Rights? Vanessa's voice rose to a shriek. What about my rights? What about my right to be happy? My right to have the life I deserved? She was close enough now that I could see the madness in her eyes, the complete disconnect from reality that had probably been there all along. You took that away from me, she whispered. So now I'm going to take everything away from you. She raised the gun, and I dove behind the conference table just as she fired. The bullet shattered the glass wall behind me, sending shards cascading to the floor. You can't hide forever, Nathan, she screamed, firing again. I stayed low, crawling toward the emergency exit on the far side of the floor. If I could get to the stairwell, if I could get outside. But she was between me and the exit, and she seemed to anticipate my every move. I know you, Nathan, she called out, reloading the gun with practiced efficiency. I lived with you for 5 years. I know how you think, how you move, how you try to solve problems. Another shot, this one closer. You always think you're the smartest person in the room, she continued, but you're not smarter than me. You never were. I reached the far wall and realized I was trapped. The emergency exit was 20 feet away, but it might as well have been 20 miles. She had a clear line of sight, and I had nowhere to hide. That's when I remembered the building's fire suppression system. Every floor had manual fire alarm pulls that would trigger the sprinkler system and unlock all the emergency exits. There was one right next to where I was crouched, hidden behind a support pillar. I reached up and yanked the alarm. Immediately, sirens began wailing and water started pouring from the ceiling sprinklers. The emergency lighting switched to a brighter mode, and I heard the distinctive click of magnetic locks disengaging. Vanessa cursed and fired wildly in my direction, but the water and noise had disoriented her. I ran for the stairwell, my feet slipping on the wet floor. I made it to the door and yanked it open, but she was right behind me. Nathan! I turned and saw her in the doorway, soaked and furious, raising the gun for a final shot. But she never got the chance to fire. Detective Mallory appeared behind her, his own weapon drawn. Drop it, Vanessa! She spun toward him, and for a moment I thought she might actually surrender. But then she smiled, that same beautiful, deadly smile I'd fallen in love with years ago. Tell Nathan I said goodbye, she whispered, and then she turned the gun on herself. The shot echoed through the stairwell, and Vanessa crumpled to the floor, blood pooling beneath her head. Detective Mallory rushed to check her pulse while I stood there, dripping wet and shaking, staring at the woman who had tried to kill me. She's gone, Mallory said quietly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Nathan, are you all right? I looked at him, this man who had saved my life twice now, and tried to find words for what I was feeling. Relief, horror, grief for the woman I'd thought I'd married, rage at the monster she'd actually been. Yeah, I said finally. I'm all right. As the paramedics and crime scene investigators flooded the building, I stood on the sidewalk outside, watching them carry Vanessa's body away. It was over. Really, truly over. Eric was dead. Vanessa was dead. Their network of accomplices was scattered and ruined. Justice had been served in its own twisted way. I pulled out my phone and called Tim. Nathan? Jesus, are you okay? I heard about the shooting on the news. I'm fine, Tim, but I need you to do something for me. Anything. Call a press conference for Monday morning. I want to tell our story, all of it, the whole truth about what Vanessa and Eric did, what they were planning to do, and how we stopped them. Are you sure? The media attention will be worth it if it prevents this from happening to someone else. Because that was the thing about monsters like Vanessa and Eric. They weren't unique. There were others out there, other predators looking for vulnerable targets, other conspiracies waiting to unfold. But now the world would know what to look for. Now other potential victims might recognize the warning signs before it was too late. I looked up at my office building, at the broken windows on the 20th floor where my wife had tried to murder me, and I smiled. I'd survived. I'd won. And I'd made sure that everyone who'd tried to destroy me had paid the price. It was, I realized, a pretty good day's work.